Hi, everybody. Before we get to another great interview, the Two Opinionated podcast could really use your help. And it's easy, it's free. IMDb, which is the entertainment database, imdb.com, named us a top 100 podcast. We came in at number 82. That's a big deal because there's 15 million podcasts and growing. So to be named to anybody's top 100 list, pretty big deal for us. And the way you can help is to go to imdb.com, look up the Two Opinionated podcast, and that's it. Just bringing our page up. That traffic really helps us out. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. All we ask is that you subscribe. It's also free, but that really helps us to attract these amazing guests that we keep bringing on the program. And that's it. Two easy ways for you to support us, and we would really appreciate the help. Now let's get to that interview. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Two Opinionated. So excited today. I've got author Gordon Lownds with me. So welcome, Gordon.
Thank you. I appreciate the talk.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this, and we got to get into cracking up.
Yeah.
But before we do that, let's talk about you a little bit. Of course, the book's about you, so I guess we're still talking about you. But give us a little bit about your background. What were you doing before you decided to write, and what kind of inspired you to write?
Okay, so my claim to fame is I was the co-founder and drove the startup of Sleep Country Canada, which was turned into $1 billion plus enterprise.
What did that enterprise do?
So it's a specialty mattress retailer, so like Mattress Giant, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so I had been in
I've been trying to figure out what it was that what business that was. And you think with sleep in it, I'd have figured that out. But okay, continue.
That's okay. So we started that business in 1994, and that's sort of my big win, if you like, in life.
What caused you to open that business? Were you looking for something to open, or did something kind of lead you to mattresses?
So what happened was a partner and I had an investment banking sort of boutique business.
Yeah.
And we did a leverage buyout of Simmons Mattress Company in Canada, and that's one of the major manufacturers.
Yeah.
And looking at that business, after a couple of years, we got frustrated with its inability to grow its market share, and it was heavily dependent on department stores as a distribution channel. So we looked at that and said, department stores are not doing a great job. There must be a better way to do that. So we developed a business plan to basically open a Canada-wide chain of specialty mattress stores. And
that's a great idea, especially back in the 90s.
Yeah, well, and what we did was to sort of mitigate the risk of a startup, because startups always have a high risk attached to them. Right. We went and toured the 10 top specialty mattress retailers in the U.S. And basically shared our business plan with them and asked them for their comments and suggestions.
Yeah.
And so that resulted in basically us being quite comfortable with our plan and approach. And so we sold our interest in Simmons Mattress and basically became a customer. So we capitalized the business with $1 million in 1994. Sold the business to Bain Capital 5 years later for $90 million.
I mean, I'm not the best at business, but that seems like a good deal.
It was a great deal. My other investors were delighted, and the company's continued to grow. And it was recently sold in last October for $1.7 billion. So
wow, that has to make you feel pretty good that something you created, is that big now. That's amazing.
Yeah, I try to keep my ego in check and don't think too much about it.
Do they call you to come in and talk to the troops?
Not anymore. So what happened was in the middle of the startup, I mistakenly ended up with a crack cocaine addiction. And so,
and that's, saying it jokingly, but it's very easy with that. That old adage where you hear it only takes one time. It's true.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I ended up in a relationship with a young woman. I was divorced at the time.
Yeah.
She moved in with me in Vancouver, and a couple of months after living with her, I discovered she had a drug problem.
Yeah.
So I tried to get her into treatment. We got a couple of times, and then it didn't stick. She just didn't want to, you know, get better. And I told her that, you know, she's going to have to leave because I couldn't, you know, run my business and live my life with a drug addict, you know,
Right.
at home. And so basically, she said she was willing to leave, but would I at least try it once with her, so that I could empathize with how she felt and why might be difficult to get away from it. And so I figured that's not a problem. I've never had anything in my life that's ever been able to sort of take control of me.
Right.
And I've seen people doing cocaine in the movies, and it doesn't seem like a big deal. What I didn't realize, when we basically sat down and did it, was that I was smoking crack cocaine. I wasn't snorting coke like
Right.
normal
Like in the
people do.
movies. Yeah.
Yeah. So and my body chemistry had an instantly positive reaction to it, and it was what I call euphoric chaos. It was magical.
Yeah.
And I after that first hit, I fell to my knees. I wrapped my arms around her and I said, "I will be your slave forever." And what I didn't realize is I was talking to the cocaine, not to her.
Yeah.
So on that, I went to work, the next Monday and said, "Well, I can party on the weekend. This is great, because we had crazy sex stuff, when you're high on cocaine and all that
Sure.
other stuff." So it was a really hedonistic kind of experience. And I figured I
And
can party on
especially
the.
as a younger man, that's tough to resist that.
Well, yeah, and I was 48 years old at the time, so 48-year-old people don't normally end up, getting into a drug problem. And within 6 months, I realized I had a problem. Didn't know what to do about it. And then within a year, I was shooting up cocaine, which is just insane.
Yeah.
And my life, sort of went completely sideways, after that. And the irony
when
is,
you were in it, when you were really into that addiction, did you know that you were in trouble, or were you too far gone?
no, I knew within 6 months that I had a problem.
Yeah.
Um, but I really didn't know what to do about it, to be honest. And
Yeah.
I'd never sort of been exposed to the drug culture before, so it was new territory for me. And I was too embarrassed, to admit that I had a problem. I didn't want people at work to find out. So it was a sort of death-defying high wire act on a daily basis to basically hide my addiction and still carry on, basically running the business.
Yeah.
And they have this term called a high functioning addict. And I was a high functioning addict in two ways. I was functioning at a very high level, but I was also high when I was functioning.
Right.
So it was crazy, and that's a very typical thing for alcoholics and addicts. We're great actors, and we can sort of show the world who they think we are, and then hide the real person behind.
And I'm assuming at some point it kind of bottomed out for you.
Yeah. I went. I'm also a high achiever. Forgive the pun, but so I went, from 0 to 100 miles an hour in a very, very fast time. So
Yeah.
my addiction lasted for 1,000 days, but I got to the point where I was shooting up cocaine on a daily basis. The last 3 months of my using, I was completely isolated. I had taken a leave of absence from work because I couldn't, keep up the charade anymore. And I was shooting up, all day, every day. Some of the veins in my arm had collapsed because I'd used them too much.
Yeah.
And I was sitting, basically, my bottom was sitting there saying, "I hope I overdose, so I don't have to deal with this pain anymore." But I didn't have the courage to kill myself. So it's
That's awful.
it was not a good place to be. And what happened was I ended up putting myself in a box because when I took my leave of absence, I promised my partners I'd be back at work on Labor Day. 3 months, sort of, I figured 3 months I can get my act together and straighten myself out. And that didn't happen. And so 2 days after Labor Day, so I'm 2 days late, I finally phoned and told my partner, I said, look, I haven't, you knew I had some health problems, but I didn't tell you I was a cocaine addict. And so I basically broke down and just said, like, I'm completely screwed. Like, I'm just sorry. And I was expecting him to sort of just, tear a strip off my back and get mad and, all that other good stuff.
Yeah, of course.
And the last thing I expected was compassion. And he said, look, I'm really sorry. What can we do to help? So
that's awesome. That's a good friend.
Yeah. So he helped get me into treatment. I went to treatment for 3 months. That was a bit of an adventure in itself, as you might imagine. And I got out of treatment, and a week after I got out of treatment, I relapsed again.
Pretty common, I think.
But it's a very common thing. That's what addicts do.
Yeah.
And then basically 2.5 months later, I finally, I kept telling my partner. He said you need to talk to me once a week just so I know you're alive.
Yeah.
And he said, you need to get your act together. And I said, yeah, I know, but I have to do it for myself. I can't do it for someone else. That's right. I really have to have the desire to do this for myself. And I finally got to that point where I was basically got on a plane one day on the 14th of March in 1999, flew to Toronto. And as soon as I landed in Toronto, it was like the obsession and the compulsion to use had just, in effect, magically just disappeared. Like I was done. And awesome. I've been clean ever since.
Yeah. What do you think caused that? That just caused you to be able to walk away like that?
I don't know. I mean, I've had sort of an adventuresome life, you might put it this way. I left home when I was 15 years old, and I was a traveling carnival worker at the age of 16, traveling around the U.S.
That's kind of the cliche you hear about the movies. Somebody runs off to join the circus or something, but you're actually traveling with the carnival.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of life. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And the thing that, in reflecting about this, at the end of the day, I'm a survivor. I'm very, very resilient. And I've been able to outlast adversity at every stage of my life. And I think this is just another, a prime example of, I guess, the will to live and trying to get my life back together again.
Yeah, I love that. How long have you been sober?
So 25 years, roughly.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. 25 years ago, I've got celiac disease, so I'm allergic to gluten. But I was diagnosed 25 years ago, so that's my reference with that. But that's impressive. So during that time, any close calls, almost slipping, or has it been pretty smooth?
No, I credit my recovery with two things. I did spend a lot of time in the 12-step community, Cocaine Anonymous and Alcohol Anonymous, for a good 5 or 6 years, when I got clean and sober. But I also I realized, and this is fairly common, when you get clean and sober, a lot of us alcoholics and addicts suddenly find that we have some latent mental disorders sort of bubble to the surface.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you're clean and sober, but holy crap!
You got some issues.
I'm messed up here. So I spent a good 10 years, first 10 years of my recovery, working with a doctor, an addictions doctor, and basically in counseling for 10 years. Yeah. And I credit him more than anything else with getting me through that process, because recovery is a challenging time.
Yeah, it's I joke that I've got a Diet Coke addiction, and it's very difficult for me to not drink a Diet Coke, and that's Diet Coke. I mean that just, if you can get addicted to something, caffeine or whatever it is, and that can be such a problem. Just think what an actual drug could do to you.
Yeah. And, I don't, I mean, it's a long time ago, so I don't remember whether I had any sort of temptations, early in my recovery. but I can tell you that any temptation was immediately, blocked by my, recent memory of how bad it got. And there was no way I ever wanted to go back to that point in my life.
Yeah, good for you. So when did you start thinking about writing?
So I wrote most of this book within 2 to 3 years of getting clean and sober.
Oh, really?
And
So
I never intended to publish.
You've had this for a while.
Yeah, I did it as a cathartic exercise just to get my demons out. And I put it on the shelf, and that was fine. And I mean, I didn't want to publish it for two reasons. One is my daughter was 17 at the time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really nasty stuff in my book.
Sure.
And I didn't want to have her have to deal with that.
Understandable.
Yeah. And I also didn't want my troubles to affect the Sleep Country Canada and my partners there in terms of the reputation. So as I said, I really never intended to publish. What happened was about 6 or 8 months ago, a friend of mine in recovery wrote a book called What's Wrong with My Teen? And she's an addictions counselor, and she specializes in teens with addiction.
Yeah.
And she sent me the book and asked me if I'd read it and review it. And I did that. And through that process, got to meet her publisher. And her publisher, when she found out what my business background was, she said, there must be a book in you. And I said, well, there is, but it's not what you think it's going to be. So long story short, she talked me into getting together with an editor and publishing, and that's where we're at. And the book is being launched this Friday.
Well, how are you feeling about that now that it's coming out and people are going to see it, including family? How does that went?
Yeah, I checked with my family. My daughter has read it in advance, so she knows what's there.
Good.
And I mean, she's 40 years old, so she's known about my problems since she was 17. So
right.
She's dealt with it. And I checked with my partners at Sleep Country, and they said, look, it's your life. There's no more damage that you can possibly do to this company because it's doing quite well on its own.
Yeah.
So I decided to put it out there. And the biggest surprise, I've had probably 10 or 12 people read the manuscript in advance of publishing it. And the biggest surprise is the people keep telling me it's really funny. And I didn't intend it to be funny, but I've been known to speak with what I call radical candor. And it's a pretty brutal, honest reflection of what my life was like. And I basically take people through my addiction, from my own eyes.
Yeah, and that's not easy to do. But of course, when you're writing most of it, you're writing it for yourself.
Yeah. And I wrote it in the first person present tense. So basically, if you're reading it, you're right there, experiencing what I'm experiencing. And there's some pretty gruesome stuff there. Yeah,
I can imagine. I can't. I got mine ordered, so I can't wait to check it out. I'll have to let you know. It usually the way it happens is we get a book in, my wife steals it and reads it first. So, but I'll let you know what both of us think. So,
yeah,
she at least, like, I'm a little slower reader. She can fly through stuff, so it won't take her too long. But yeah, and I think you mentioned it. It comes out Friday, right? 15th.
Yeah, that's the official launch date. Yeah, the other surprising thing to me is that a couple of people in the mental health community up in Canada have read the book, and they basically, they asked me to do a couple of webinars and this sort of thing. Because of my business reputation, they're hoping that my story can help sort of reduce the stigma of addiction.
Well, I think it can.
Yeah.
I could totally see you being asked for speaking engagements and things once the book kind of gets out there and people read that, because obviously that's a problem. It didn't just affect you; it affects a lot of people.
Yeah. And the whole purpose of really publishing it, from my point of view, is to basically say, addiction can happen to anyone, anytime, anywhere, in any manner of different ways. So you're never immune. I thought I was invincible. That's why it never bothered me. I said, sure, I can do cocaine. I can handle anything. But I wasn't. So it can happen anytime if you're not, aware of what you're doing. And the other key message is that no matter how messed up you are or how long you've been an addict, it's never too late to get help, and it's never too late to turn your life around. And that's the message.
Yeah, that's a great message. Has it been, the process of getting this ready, and of course when it comes out, has that been cathartic for you?
No, to be honest, I officially retired in 2012, and I've been sort of, relaxing on Vancouver Island, living with my daughter and her dog. And I haven't been doing much. And what happened, all of a sudden, my brain got re-engaged, and I'm quite enjoying the editing process and the publishing process and the interviews and stuff. So it's, I was a recluse, and I've got people from high school getting in touch with me. It's crazy.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a positive benefit of the whole ordeal that you've been through, but you've kind of come full circle with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
well, is there a period of time that you discuss in the books that that was difficult for you to get out, or was all of it just, it was all kind of bad, so it wasn't too bad writing it down, or was there parts that you struggled to get out?
No. As I said, I've become much more self-aware.
Yeah.
Having had to go through this process, and one of the things that addiction does is it makes you much more humble than you used to be. And I was a high-flying, successful guy.
Yeah.
So I was humbled in an incredible, in a very significant way.
Yeah.
And when you have, self-awareness and humility, then it's not difficult to put things down and say, look, this is what happened, and I'm going to be honest about it.
Yeah, and good for you. And that's something that most of us struggle with. It's hard enough to be honest with yourself, but usually you don't want to share that.
Yeah.
Because that can be a little delicate with that. Yeah. But you're putting it out there, which I think is going to help other people. I think it's terrific.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I think it will be. Is there any desire to write another book at some point?
People have been saying I should write another book, and I my comment is, I only have one life that I can talk about, and this is the most dramatic part of it. So I'm not sure anything else would stand the test of time. But a lot of people have asked me to write some stuff about my business career and advice about business and stuff. Yeah. So I've been doing some blog posts on my website sort of twice a week, basically to track my business career in terms of things that I've learned over a 40-year business.
Well, yeah, and it also gets you to regularly writing. You never know, something might spark, and then you might write a book at some point.
Yeah, and I do enjoy the writing process.
Did you have a like when you decided you're going to write, because you hadn't done that before? Did you have a process where did you sit down and then I'm going to sit here for 4 hours and just see what happens? What was your process?
To be honest, I don't remember.
Yeah, that's right, because you wrote it, so most of it.
So it was a long time ago. And again, at that time, I wasn't, working from a business point of view. Yeah. So I probably, wrote when I felt like it, but I was, intent on getting it down on paper. So I was pretty dedicated to it. And I've always had a really strong work ethic. So if I set my mind to something, I'm going to do it. And that was sort of the attitude I took.
To me, seems like it would make a pretty good movie or a TV show, either one.
People have mentioned that too, and my reaction is fine. If someone wants to make a movie, I'm all for it.
Well, if it gets made into a movie, would you cameo in it?
I don't think so.
Maybe you'd be the guy that sells the initial mattress store.
Wow, that's possible. To be honest, I've never wanted to be in the spotlight.
Yeah.
Even when we started Sleep Country, I had two partners. One was in the investment banking business with me, and we basically recruited a female, Christine McGee, to be our president, and she was the public face of the company. She did all the advertising, and Steve and I just wanted to stay in the background and drive the business forward and let her take the credit and basically be the ambassador for the brand.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's become, she's probably one of the best known people in Canada right now from a public point of view. So
yeah, so she did okay.
well, yeah, she did. She's still the chairman of the company, and she's done very well.
Well, you know what that tells me is that you chose correctly.
I actually talk about that in the book. Recruiting her was the best thing that Steve and I did. And we had gotten to know her because she was a banker before she came to work with us. And she was one of the lenders in one of our leverage buyouts in the early days. So we'd known her for 5 or 6 years before we started Sleep Country. And I sat down with her one morning on Bay Street, sort of the Wall Street equivalent in Toronto, at breakfast, and said, "How would you like to be the mattress queen of Canada?" And to be honest, I wouldn't be able to get away with saying that in this world.
Well, that's right. That's right. That's exactly what I was thinking when you said it.
Good news is we knew her well. We knew her husband, and her husband was a stand-up comedian. So I knew she had a sense of humor, and she took it well.
Yeah, that's terrific. I love it. Do you still dabble in business, or have you I've
stepped away completely after we'd sold Sleep Country, and about 2 or 3 years into my getting clean and sober, I started a second business called Listen Up Canada. Yeah. And that's a hearing healthcare chain, sort of like Miracle Ear down in the States.
Yeah.
And so I started that in 2003 and sold it in 2012. And that was basically my official retirement.
Yeah, very nice though. It's rare that anyone has a successful business, and you had a couple of them. I'm very lucky. That's all I can say. yeah, I know all about that. My father has hearing trouble. His dad had hearing trouble too, so I know all about the hearing aid stores, and they're needed. Yeah, it comes in really handy.
Yeah, no, that was as I said, and again, it's the kind of thing. The idea came from sitting down with a friend over coffee, and he had Meniere's disease, which basically causes hearing loss. And he was describing what a terrible process it was to try and get fit with hearing aids. And I was listening to this, and I said, that's awful. Like, someone should do something about that.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh, maybe I could.
Maybe it's you. Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
No, that's really good. Have you, since that time, so it's been 13 years since you retired, have you run into other things that you're like, I could make that into a business?
Not that I recall. I've had a lot of people get in touch with me and basically, say, I've got an idea for a business. Can you sort of give me some help, advice kind of thing?
Well, you probably like that. That's
nice. Yeah. No, it's fun, and I do that, and I've done some advisory work for sort of medium-sized companies who are trying to grow their business down in the States. So so I do that. I enjoy it. I don't ask for compensation. I just enjoy the challenge.
Well, it's kind of giving back. You had businesses here in the States helping you out. Now you're kind of giving back.
Yeah. No, it's been great. The strangest concept that was presented to me was basically some gentleman wanted to open a chain of basically clinics to give dogs massages. And as I said, I'm very candid with people, and I said, dude, it's not going to happen.
That's that's funny. My son's a big dog person, and he would be like, oh yeah, you should give dogs a massage. That actually sounds like something that would do pretty well.
Well, yeah, it's a matter of, is it scalable, and, is there enough demand for it? And there's a whole, anyway, I walked him through the challenges that he would have and suggested he should, come up with something else.
Well, so did he, or did he stick with the original idea?
No, he gave up on it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the pet space has kind of exploded over the last 20 years, but it seemed to me, and I'm not a pet owner, but it seems kind of saturated to me. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been a little iffy on that one, I think.
Yeah. If anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Pet Value or PetSmart or one of those companies. Yeah.
Well, and they might already do some of that.
Yeah. I wouldn't know.
Were you even a dog lover?
Yeah, I've had a dog, my entire life.
Okay.
As I said, my daughter's had a dog her entire life, and I basically
you haven't given your dog a massage?
No. The thought never occurred to me, even after I talked to this guy.
So the memoir is called Cracking Up. Where'd you come up with the title? Was that something you had that whole time, or did that come around once you got?
Actually, in addition to writing the manuscript, I at one point in my life was a professional musician, and so I wrote some songs and recorded a CD. The title of the CD is "Addicted to Life."
Yeah,
it's on SoundCloud and it's on my website.
What instrument are you playing?
Guitar.
Oh, very nice. And you singing as well, or is it just?
I played and sang, and I had a female vocalist with me and a couple of other instrumentalists, and I produced this. And one of the tracks on the CD is called "Cracking Up," and I had toyed around with different titles. But I sort of landed on that just from I'm a marketer at my core, and I'm sitting there saying, you need to have something short, memorable, and easy for people to sort of recall.
Well, that's right.
And that's just as I said, I had a song already titled that, and I said that makes sense to me. So there we go.
Yeah, it made it easy.
Well, it's also a play on words. I mean, cracking up, traditionally has meant something's really funny.
Well, that's right. Well, and you said that people were telling you this is actually pretty funny.
Yeah, but the play on words for smoking crack is obviously the irony.
Yeah, I thought it was a great name. That's why I asked. I was like, that's pretty appropriate. That's pretty good. Did you have to go out and find, did you get an artist for the book cover?
No. Well, the publisher basically did that, and I looked at a whole bunch of book covers just to see what other people were doing.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me that, book covers had become very, very busy. And what I really wanted, again, from a marketing point of view, was just something fairly plain. The title would stand out, and there's no, they had suggested, having a dark alley and, rain and all sorts of stuff on the cover. And I said, no, just put the title there and let's go.
Yeah, I kind of like that. Pretty good. Do you, in the book, do you point, people that are struggling with addiction somewhere for help, or is it just more just telling your story?
No, well, if they read the story, they'll, it's clear that, the 12-step community was very, very instrumental in my getting clean and sober in the early days. But it's also clear that I had a lot of help from, a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And what I basically advocate for is there's no, one way to get clean and sober. Basically, it really reflects, who you are and what your unique circumstances are. And in my experience, a combination of approaches, in my case, 12-step plus, psychiatry, is really what made my recovery sustainable.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing about the 12-step world, I basically stepped away from going to 12-step meetings after about 5 or 6 years, because there's still a lot of victimhood and negativity and whining in in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and Cocaine Anonymous, and I completely understand why that is the case. But I got to the point where I didn't want to be around that negativity that much.
I think I'd have trouble with that. If you're trying to recover, you want to stay positive. You don't want to kind of dwell in that negativity.
Yeah, and so what a 12-step program will not do is, if you have some mental health problems, it doesn't have any solutions for that. Right. And as I said, it's becoming more generally accepted now that people with addictions are more than likely to have some mental health issues.
Yeah.
And so you need a more holistic approach to basically treating alcoholism and addiction.
Have you run into anything else that has given you trouble? That's maybe not a narcotic, but you mentioned earlier you never really had an issue with being addicted to anything. Have you run into that since?
No. I can tell you one of the great challenges in my life. I was married for 15 or 16 years.
Yeah.
As I said, I got divorced, shortly at the start of the Sleep Country adventure. And I was consistently frustrated for the rest of my life at not being able to find a relationship that would work for me.
Yeah.
And some of the humorous parts of my story is basically trying to find a relationship that would fit, in the midst of my recovery.
Right.
And
that's a lot for somebody coming into a relationship. That's a lot to take on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you a quick sort of funny story.
Yeah.
So my doctor said, have you tried internet dating? And I said, no, but he said, well, you should try this eHarmony thing. And I said, okay. So I said, and he encouraging me to sort of set targets and timelines around things that I did. Yeah. So I said, I'll meet 3 women. And if nothing works, then I'm just going to give up, and I won't take more than 9 months to do it. So I started doing that, and I ended up meeting 3 women, and the last one was a disaster. So I went home and said that I'm completely giving up. But when I got home, there was an email from a 4th lady, sort of waiting for me, and I looked at it and said, well, she might be interesting. Yeah. So I started emailing back and forth with her. It was looking pretty promising, and she was a young, attractive woman, and she had a couple of kids. And the only problem was she was living in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, which is in the middle of the prairie provinces, like in the middle of nowhere. And I'm living in Toronto at the time. So I'm saying, I don't know if a long distance relationship would work. So I ended up back and forth. I finally said, okay, I'm going to go out and meet this lady and see if, it's going to work out. Why not? Yeah. So I go out there, I fly out there, I drive to Moose Jaw, I arrive at the hotel, and she's waiting for me in the lobby, and she looks exactly like she did on the website, which is a bonus these days.
That's right.
And so we're having a nice get-together dinner, and sort of at the end of the dinner, I said, one of the things that attracted me to her was that she was an independent businesswoman.
Yeah. And
I said, you never got around to telling me, what business you're in. And she said, oh, I'm Saskatchewan's only professional dominatrix. So that was the end of my dating career right there.
Yeah, that'd be a tough one to deal with, I think.
Yeah. My doctor couldn't stop laughing. He just thought it was funny. Hilarious.
Well, in some ways, maybe that was for the best, because that was going to be a difficult relationship to maintain anyway, because of the distance.
Absolutely. Oh
yeah, that's not what I was expecting.
wasn't what I was expecting either, to be honest.
Well, so once she says that, did you know, like, immediately were you like, okay, this isn't going to work out, or did you go ahead and finish the date?
No. As I said, I've told this story like at cocktail parties and stuff afterwards, and people are saying, so what happened? And I said, well, I'm not going to tell you like that.
I mean, you were there.
I was there. So I had an interesting weekend. When when she drove me back to the airport, she asked me if we could stop in a mobile home park along the way. And she pulls up in front of this place and she says, "That's a really nice house. Could you buy it for me?" Because she knew, like, I had done quite well from a business point of view, right? So I said, "I'll have to think about that."
That's asking a lot after just one weekend.
That's right. Anyway, so I left Moose Jaw and I said, "Never again. I will never be back."
Have you been back to Moose Jaw?
No, never. I'm too terrified.
Well, that would probably scare me off of the online dating.
Yeah.
I could, that's especially like eHarmony. That's supposed to be kind of the, that's the nice.
That's what I thought. But I was cynical. I said, if they think they can understand my personality with 29 different questions, they're crazy. Like, I'm much more complex than that, right?
Or maybe not. Yeah, that's a pretty good story.
Yeah.
See, that's the type of thing that would play very well on a TV show or a movie.
I'm sure it would. But I mean, there's some awful stuff in it too. I mean, I ended up getting blackmailed, extortion. I had death threats. I was hanging out in the downtown Lower East Side of Vancouver, which is like an open air drug market. It's like worse than San Francisco, Mission District kind of thing. So I've seen a lot of really bad stuff.
Out of the blackmail situations? How'd you get out of dealing with that?
Basically, well, what happened was that the girlfriend that I started doing the drugs with, she eventually went back to Seattle.
Yeah.
And then she phoned me up, and I sent her back. I bought her a car, and I gave her some money, and I said, "You're on your own." And like, I'm out of here. And she phoned me like 2 weeks later, and she says, "I need more money." And I said, "Well, what did you do with the money I gave you?"
Right.
And I think she lent it to a drug dealer, and she was crazy. So she ended up extorting me, basically threatening to call my ex-wife, call my business partners, call the newspapers up in Toronto, and tell them that I was a drug addict and that I had taken her passport and I had locked her in my apartment and just all this wild stuff.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
So I was paying her and paying her and paying her, and finally she asked for a huge amount of money, I think $50,000 or $60,000, and I said, I'll meet you in Seattle. And basically I called the DEA and the Seattle Police Department because I had her on tape. And I said, basically I went to meet her and I said, "Okay, this is the end of the deal. Listen to this tape. I've got you, basically trying to extort money from me. And don't ever call me again." And when I left the motel that she was at, I called the DEA and said, because she was sitting there with a couple of bikers and a kilo of cocaine. And I said, if you want some drug dealers and stuff, here's where they are right now. And I never heard from her again. So,
well, good for you. Yeah, because that's type of situation that ends up dragging people back into a bad place that they're trying to get out of.
Yeah. As I said, the stress of that didn't help me getting clean and sober, because the thing about being high on cocaine is that all of your problems go away. Like, everything is wonderful. Like, you don't worry about anything.
Right.
So whenever the trauma happens, you just get high, because that's the only way you can deal with it.
Yeah. Well, and then you just keep getting high, because every time you're sober, everything comes crashing in on you.
Yeah. And
well, I'm so happy, Gordon, that you're here today, because that, as bad as that sounds like it could have went a different way, but you got out of it.
Yeah, and as I said, I did OD once. I got set up in a drug bust once. I mean, I had some close calls.
I got to read this book.
Yes, I think you should.
Well, I've got it ordered, so I assume I'll get it on Friday. So I'll let you know what I think. But
all right, I appreciate that. I always like to hear what folks think. So, well,
and just on a serious note, I mean, this type of book is bound to help someone. So good for you for writing it, because it's not easy. None of us like to talk about, our worst moments or our weakest moments, but you're putting it all out there, which shows kind of how far you've come, because now you're okay with people knowing the details and stuff. Back then you were not okay with it.
My biggest fear through the entire process, time of being addicted, was that someone would find out that I was an addict. And I said, no one knew. Like, my family didn't know, my business partners didn't know. The only people who knew was the girlfriend and a bunch of drug dealers. And it was this huge secret that you sort of carry around like the weight of the world on your shoulders, and hoping that you're not going to screw up and someone's going to find out that you're messed up.
Yeah. What a terrible place to be in. And there's so many people going through that. And I'm sure they were just like you and not sure how to get out of it.
Yeah. As I said, it's the biggest difficulty is asking for help. And I keep telling people, you'll never be able to get clean and sober until you're willing to accept help. Because in my case, I didn't ask for help. I just surrendered and said, I'm screwed. Like, do whatever you want with me. And at least, when the help was offered, I accepted it. And that's the difference. And, people will not get clean and sober until they stop being a victim and until they're willing to ask for help.
Yeah, that's the key. I think that a lot of people struggle with is just the asking for help part.
Yeah.
Because once you say it out loud, it's real.
Well, I frequently tell people, one of the reasons I didn't was because I was too proud. And I like to remind people that pride is one of the deadly sins.
Yes, it is.
So, and in more ways than one, pride is what kept me from basically being willing to admit I had a problem.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you got over that.
Yeah, my pride has been. I said goodbye to that for a while ago.
Well, Gordon, thank you so much for coming on the show. So the book is Cracking Up, and it's out Friday, the 15th. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Are you doing anything special that day?
No.
Not even cooking a fancy dinner or anything?
Oh, no. I mean, people have tried to drag me back down to Toronto to meet some people and do some book launch kind of things. But I'm pretty comfortable on Vancouver Island, and I'll get down to Toronto sometime this fall. But I'm in no hurry.
Time to do that later.
Yeah, Vancouver Island is the best place in North America to be, so I'm happy here.
I've heard that, actually. I've had several guests on the show that say the same thing. They love it.
Yeah, it's peaceful and quiet and full of nature.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. That sounds like West Virginia, which is where I'm at in the States.
Yeah.
It's very outdoorsy here.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Gordon, before I let you go, where can we find the book? And are you on social media? Where can we find you?
Yeah, I'm on social media, gordonlownds.com.
Yeah.
And I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. Okay. I've never been a big social media kind of guy, but I now have 22 followers.
Well, if you write a book, you gotta get somewhere for people to find you.
Yeah. And the book will be on Amazon, Kindle, Borders, the regular bookstores.
Yeah, terrific. Well, thank you so much, Gordon, for the time, and I'm so happy that we're here speaking about this in the past tense.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. You're a fun guy.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. If you ever do get around to writing that second one, you have to come back.
I'll be happy to do that.
All right, Gordon, hold on one second. Gordon was just terrific. The book is Cracking Up. Do yourself a favor, help Gordon out, read the book. If you are recovering from an addiction yourself, or someone that is fighting that battle, Cracking Up, I think, will be a terrific book to read. Gordon's writing style has some humor in it. We talked a little bit about that on the podcast. I really do think this would make a great, I don't know, I'm thinking more TV show, but movie too. I would watch either one of those. And I hope Gordon would actually cameo in it. I think that would be terrific. The memoir is called Cracking Up. Comes out August 15th. Make sure that you get your copy. And hopefully we can have Gordon back to give us an update on how things are going a little bit down the road. We'll definitely try. If you're finding us for the first time, thank you for being here. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Please subscribe while you're there. It doesn't cost you anything, really helps us out. Our website is meistercon.com. You can find over 1,000 episodes, audio and video versions. It'll let you know if we're doing anything in studio, going on location, covering a convention, anything we have going on, be on the website, meistercon.com. So please check us out there. Thank you guys so much. Till next time. Bye, everybody.